Hey everyone. So today we have Cedric. So Cedric, you've been a client of mine for how long, Cedric?
I joined last year in December.
Last year, December. So set just over 7 months, I would say. Uh, but Cedric's story is going to be very interesting here because I think in the initial situation, I think Cedric, you had a what you describe as a very passionate relationship, but it was a very turbulent relationship. And I think your partner, when she finally left to go to Europe, but on her own for her studies, that was when that space finally made her realize how much she didn't want the relationship anymore. And you reacted in such a toxic way, in a way where I think a lot of people can relate to later on, that actually got you into a coma. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But here we are. We're recording this in July 28th, one day before my birthday. And you guys have taken trips together. You're spending time in Europe together now. So night and day difference between when you first joined and now. And so I think a lot of people here can relate to Cedric's initial mindset, initial state of being, initial anger, feelings, etc. And I want for people to look at this interview and go, if Cedric can do it, I can fucking do it too. So, but we also are joined here with Sabor. So Sabor, I hired Sabor. How long ago was that, Sabor? Probably like beginning of the year
Yeah, I'd
or
say so.
Q1, right? But Sabor has become a coach in the community as well. So Sabor, of a lot of you who don't know, we have interviewed him twice already. He started out as one of my clients as well, and now he's a coach. Again, another indication that if you just do the work, this is not a talent game. This is just a game of skill. And if you put in the work, you will get the results. It's that simple. But Cedric, if you can start us off with, can you paint us a picture of what that initial situation looked like before and when you joined the program? Go as far back as you need.
Yeah, sure. So like you said, I mean, it was always a passionate relationship, full of good intentions. But I mean, pretty much from the word go, there was always just continuous conflict and I guess just real misalignments on communication and just understanding why certain feelings weren't there or why they were there sometimes and not other times and just a huge amount of kind of hot cold from both sides. And you mentioned before just really toxic behaviors, I guess, from both sides, but very, very much so from me throughout. And
Can you give us
then
some examples of what that turbulence or that the toxic conversations looked like? What if you can be more specific there?
yeah, so I mean, that it was always kind of a push-pull scenario. And I guess I definitely often, had very anxious tendencies, extremely controlling tendencies. And whenever I would not see eye to eye with, how my partner felt about certain things or even certain things that was said, I would kind of slip into all of those type of toxic behaviors, right? So I'd be very needy. I'd always try to manufacture a lot of closeness. I would, manipulate and really try to turn things around so that, she felt like the problem and that I almost had the peace of mind where like, oh, cool, like I convinced her that she's the problem, like everything's okay
Mm.
now, kind of thing. And I guess that's like another part of it too was also just having this continuous feeling of like wanting to make her the project, like needing to fix her, thinking that something was wrong with her and that I was always in the right. And yeah, so I mean that's a very specific kind of outline of, how whenever we were in situations of, turbulence, how I acted and obviously, pushed her further and further away until the moment when she decided that she had enough and rightfully so.
I think if I could relate it back to my story too, and I think your story is very similar to mine. I'm sure it's very similar to Sabor's too, where at first when we first got together, it was very much lust based, right? Where okay, passion was there. I think I'm attracted to her. She's like attracted to me. We're going on this vacations together, this dates together, and all is fun and good. But then once you insert the realities of real life, of having to go through day to day, that is when you realize, we have a lot of differences here. We have a lot of difference of opinions, of direction, of decisions. And that's where your controllingness starts to come in, if you do have any. That's where, for you, you have your what seems like fundamental attribution error problems, where you blame her for a lot of stuff, her character. You have a lot of victim mindsets. You have a lot of tetheredness starts to come to light. And the worst part about this is, like me, I think you weren't aware that you had these things, and you weren't aware of how much damage those little things you're doing was actually doing.
Yeah.
Sound accurate?
Yeah, I mean the interesting thing too is like the whole way through I would always be thinking to myself, hey, I'm doing everything I can to understand her. I'm doing everything I can to be here for her. I can be I'm doing everything, but I don't understand what's happening. I can't kind of make heads or tails of the different situations. And just having this continuous feeling of just being like lost, and that there's something missing, there's some kind of understanding missing, or something fundamentally like off with me, that I'm creating this situation, but I don't know what it was, or I didn't know what it was. So yeah, like you said, those kind of realizations around shit, like I had so many blind spots, and still probably aren't like I'm not aware of a lot of them, but they were just so insidious and kind of deeply hidden. That was really mind blowing once that kind of became a realization.
Yeah, it's almost like you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Because I kind of felt the same thing too, where I thought I was trying my best in the way I knew how. But obviously, my definition of best wasn't the right best, right? It was actually the wrong direction best. Um, so the only thing I could really assign my problems to was really, well, I tried my best. I did everything I can. So if I did everything I can and this is not working, either this is her fault, something is wrong with her, or that we're just not meant to be together. And so you kind of have this very victim excuses, very victim like assign your problems to something very victim outside of you because you think you tried your best. Um, but you said in 2023, uh, your partner, can we name her name or no?
uh yeah, we'll just call it partner.
Partner, went to Europe to pursue her studies, and she realized at that point how deeply unhappy she was, right? And I think this is a scary part for a lot of people, because we talk a lot about space, we talk a lot about your partner wanting to see other people, and both happened to you. Your partner literally got space, wanted to see other people, and the worst nightmare here came true, which is that when she got her space and started to consider other people, she realized, shit, I could be so much happier somewhere else by myself. Even I don't need this shit. That's I think the scary part for a lot of people. But you experienced that. Tell me that experience.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, when she went away, it was initially things were okay. And we had done that a few times, right? So over the course of our relationship, every summer she'd go back to Europe and go for a study, kind of about 3 4 months with a school that she was studying with. And it was always a really destructive and just a really challenging time for both of us, right? And it always kind of followed the same pattern where there was there was a lot of hope. There was a lot of like, hey, this time around it's going to be different. But this time around was different in the sense that, like you said, I think she just realized once she had space from me how deeply unhappy she was, how I wasn't being a good partner, and definitely not being a good partner for her in the way that she needed. And like you said, the alternative was better and made more sense. You know what I mean? So the actual kind of unfolding of it was relatively gradual at first, but then it was very, like from like one day to the next, I could just feel that something had shifted, and that this time around it was completely different. It wasn't the kind of things being difficult for a few days or a week and then kind of coming back together again kind of thing. Like that she really meant it and that she really wanted that. And like you said, that struck up a lot of panic for sure.
Yeah. I remember feeling the same way too, where we had fights a lot. We had a lot of conflicts as well, but we always, like you said, came back together after a week or a few days, whatever it is. But then I remember there was this moment when I realized, like, okay, I think she's gone. I think she's already done. Like, like, and I remember that feeling of it felt like almost like you're falling and you're trying to grab onto branches or something around you, but you realize mid-fall, you have nothing else to grab onto anymore. And so here you're trying to say something, to do something, but you realize like she's just very cold, very indifferent, very just dead, robotic. There's nothing there anymore. There's nothing for you to grab, no lever to pull. That's a very difficult feeling, and I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling. So what did you do? So you got that feeling of that hopelessness, that hopeless feeling. How the fuck did you get into a coma from that?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I already had my flight, but usually what would happen is I'd go over to Europe maybe about a month or two later and we'd meet up there and kind of spend some time together. So I already had my flight booked. And I mean, the 6 months leading up to it were pretty intense anyway. Like I was building a house, really like a lot of stress at work and obviously just the kind of turbulence of the relationship, right? So I basically became a master of kind of like holding my stuff, holding my shit
Depressing.
in
Yeah.
more and more and more and more. And yeah, obviously there was blind panic when she kind of indicated that she wanted to end the relationship. So I already knew that I was going to fly over. So I flew over. We spent a week together when we met up. But throughout that week, I mean, she made it very, very clear that her decision stood. And I guess like, me going over, I still had this hope, I guess, of like, oh, it's going to be like the previous times where I can talk things away or make false promises or just in general try my best to kind of like plaster over the cracks and that we'd kind of get on with things. And again, like you said, I mean, this time around it was like it felt real and I knew that it was real.
Mm.
And I just broke down. Like the accumulation of all the time before and just the kind of sharpness and suddenness of that realization. I became really sick and I ended up in a coma. So that was a wake up call and a half to say the least. And it's what sparked everything that kind of came afterwards, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah. So when you were in the coma, I believe your partner actually took care of you during that time. But during that time she took care of you, I think she made it very clear that I want to make it very clear, Cedric, I'm trying to help you here, but we're still not together. And we're not gonna be together. Um, so this is an example of your partner kind of coming to you out of pity, out of obligation, rather than out of want. We'll talk about that very deeply later on. Um, but you waited from that point on, after the breakup, in essence, you waited 5 months to enroll into the program. Why so long?
I mean, first of all, it took me that long to even kind of discover the RR material or the YouTube videos that you had up. They never once kind of popped up either in conversation with people or in searches or anything like that. Um, like after I got out of hospital, we had a couple of weeks together and things just kind of like old patterns kind of started coming back, and that was kind of like the last straw, right? So I left. She asked me to leave, and I knew that I needed to leave. And basically after that, on the plane away, I just had a really strong realization. I was like, okay, I need to fix myself because what I'm doing is dangerous for, well, her, but I thought that she was gone. So it would also be dangerous for someone else if I ended up in a relationship with someone else. But I was also just super dangerous for myself. And I think getting sick just made that really clear.
Yeah.
So from there, I kind of started, you know, looking for answers basically and trying to figure out what I could do to unravel the very clear mess that I was. And yeah, so it took me about 4 months to kind of first see your videos.
Okay. I'm gonna
Yeah.
do a shameless plug a little bit here. So, uh, for the past 3, 4 years, I would say, we've been building our program side of the business to where we know we can deliver insane fucking results for people at scale. And I think in the next, I would say 2 quarters or so, we're ready to really scale to actually focus on our marketing. We haven't really focused on the marketing for like the last 4 years. So part of that, guys, if you are watching my videos, please like it, comment on it, because we need the YouTube algorithm to be on our side so people like Cedric can find us sooner and get the help they need sooner. So bueno. But anyway, uh can you talk a bit more about since you joined RR, so now we're in July 28th, 2024, what's your situation like now?
Yeah, I mean it's completely changed. I mean we started spending a lot of time together probably around February time, February March
It's
time.
pretty fast here
It
since
was
you
it
joined.
was quick. It was quick, and you know, to be fair, like, or to, you know, to be blunt, like, I wasn't really ready for how quick it was, right? So I had many I had many kind of wrestles with myself during that time as well, because I knew that you know, I knew I had a long way to go, or I still have a long way to go. But you know, things just improved so much, and we had really good times together. We went, you know, on trips together, and old patterns that we thought were unfixable, or just the way that it was, or you know, just inherent to our relationship, either didn't happen, or when they happened, there was just this dynamic that allowed positive things to kind of happen after them or off the back of them. And that was a real, I mean, you know, we both talked about it. That was really mind-blowing for us, like both. And it also just gave a lot of hope, and obviously a lot of belief in the program, and then what I was doing actually had um power, and that it was true, and that it was coming from the right place, and therefore also was resulting in these amazing developments. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I want to just touch on that a little bit because I know in this interview we mentioned to not use the word reconciliation, but I want to talk about that because I think that word rings a lot in people's heads, and I want to redefine what that means for people. Um, the moment of reconciliation is not when like people think reconciliation is the end. Let's just say that. But reconciliation is actually the start. The way I think about it is that reconciliation is when, if you're a basketball player, a scout finds you and brings you into a combine. And now in the combine, the game really fucking starts. And what you do in that combine for 3 months or whatever it is will determine whether you get in the league or not. And so reconciliation is when you have your partner is finally realizing some changes in you to say, okay, maybe he's finally admitting and realizing his changes that he needs to make and the problems that exist in the relationship. And I think because he realizes the changes he needs to make and he's making them, I can see right now it's shit still, but the trajectory is going up at least. And if it's at least it's going up, that gives me a lot of hope. And I'm going to look into that hope to see if there's anything there. So when your partner comes back to you because she sees your changes, that is when the game really starts. That is when people are really watching. That is when, as a president, for example, that's when you get elected and people are now watching. Are you actually going to do what you say you will do, what you promise you will do? So reconciliation is when the game really starts. It's not when it ends. And the reason why I bring this up is Sabor and I, we saw this, I think email, right? Email where this guy was saying like, Jeff, I watched your videos for 2 days and I fixed my relationship in 2 days. It's like, hold up, right? Getting elected or getting a scout to see your changes is easy, but it's what you do in the combine that is fucking hard. It's what you do after you get elected that is fucking hard because that's when people are watching you like a hawk, and that's when you don't want to mess up, right? And like Cedric here, sometimes the way you mess up is based on being wrongfully certain. Sometimes you think you're doing something right, but really you're doing something wrong. And we call that in the program the hemorrhage. Um, and I think, Cedric, if you looked at that journey between zero to hero, there was a lot of resistance from her side. There was a lot of tests from her side. And I think there was a lot of failures from your side on those tests. Can you tell me more about some of the tests you got and some of the failures you had? during those initial tests?
Yeah, so I mean, the interesting thing about it is like, obviously these tests are like totally subconscious, right? But it's if we put ourselves in our partner's shoes, it's like it's totally understandable. Like they've been burned so many times, disappointed so many times. Like naturally, like caution is just going to be number one, right? So the tests were very much, like testing the waters if it's safe to tell tough truths, if she can really express like how she's feeling, how she felt about the relationship, how she felt with it like during the relationship, and things of that nature, right? And basically seeing how I would react, like we would all do, basically subconsciously as well. So the initial tests were very much around that, where still, making it very clear that she didn't want a relationship, that she still wanted to see other people, that she wasn't sure about me or a future with me, and just didn't want a relationship with me. She didn't want to be in a relationship full stop because she wanted to have her independence.
Mhm.
She felt that she was denying herself all the time, but also that I was denying a lot of the times and stuff as well. So the initial tests were around that. And, the mistakes that I made in those were, old patterns showing up, old thought processes showing up, bad paradigms that led me to do, bad actions and obviously say very unhelpful and harmful things just like I used to. So those were the mistakes. And I think I had to go through that a few times to actually understand and have that contrast between like, okay, this is what you used to think, and these are kind of like your deep, like default programs, but these things aren't right. And you need to change them. And the only way to change them is really dive in and kind of give up to them, surrender to the program. So that was very much the kind of like the main kind of tests and mistakes that I made.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about this later, much deeper. But just to give people an example of what I think looks right or sounds right at first of what to do here, but actually is like dead fucking wrong, is I think when people say, I don't see a future with you, the first thing you would do is you make some promises of like what you will do, why things will be different. That is what we call the paradox of logic. So if you haven't seen that video, we'll link it somewhere up above here. But that's where when you give the paradox of logic like that, when you give more promises, that just tells your partner that you don't understand the flaws, you don't understand the depth of the problem, and if you don't understand the depth of the problem, nothing will change. So your promises actually take away more hope when you think the promises actually give more hope. Another example of that is um, you try to basically do what some people do, which is, hey, let's play the passive route, where we just kind of take ourselves away from the equation for a bit and say, okay, if you really want space, then go explore, right? But that's also kind of a passive route where it's not really doing anything, or people do smart contact, whatever it is. There's always like a lot of cons to all these approaches, while the approach that we encourage is to actually tell your partner, hey, I actually understand why you don't see a future with me. I actually understand why you want to just leave this relationship forever. I understand all the feelings you have, and be able to paraphrase your partner and those feelings in a very, very deep, in a very, very heartfelt way. So if you just understand, think about from your partner's perspective here, when you say, I don't want to spend a future with you anymore. And this guy you're talking to just it's just like, I understand why you would think that. I would do it too because of context number one, context number two, context number three. That is such a powerful fucking response, a very unexpected response that really rocks someone to go like, that's not what I was expecting, in a really, really good way. So those are the examples of like the paradoxes that you need to go through, where sometimes we do things that we're wrongfully certain about and we think is right, but it's actually very wrong. And the right answer actually feels very wrong to us at first. So that's the example there, but we'll go to that a bit deeper later. But
Yeah.
before we get into the lessons here, I want to talk about your experience in the program now that you've been in it for more than 7 months. Uh, compare this to what you find on when you were watching the YouTube videos. Obviously, you got into the program in the first place because you thought the YouTube videos actually clicked a lot of in a lot of ways with you. But then when you got to the program, there was a lot of feelings of overwhelm because there's so much in the program that is not ever going to be in YouTube. Um, what was that dissonance like? That initial culture shock, I guess, like for you?
Yeah, I mean, culture shock is definitely the way to put it. I mean, I guess like when I joined, right, I could tell that it was a pretty comprehensive program. But I basically thought like, okay, it's going to be a couple of worksheets, it's going to be a couple of videos, and let's just get to learning what to say to make this better, or to try again, or to fix myself, kind of thing. So I was very much blown away with how deep the program goes and how it's structured. Because the thing is, the way that you kind of initially want it to be structured, it's actually structured the complete opposite, where the stuff that you actually want to kind of get to and do, it's like way down the line. um and in the beginning, you're learning how to walk again. You're not even learning you're breaking yourself down so that you can actually learn how to walk again. And that was very uncomfortable, because in order to do that, you have to face a lot of things that are, quite frankly, quite scary, but also the stuff that all of us are amazing at kind of pushing to the side, or doing everything that we can to avoid working on.
Yeah.
So that was a shock, because it really kind of made me realize, hey, this isn't just a get your ex back kind of thing. It's like, okay, you need to get yourself back first, and you need to fix yourself first before you even start worrying about any of that kind of stuff. Um, so that was where the biggest kind of slap came in the beginning, where it's like, you have nowhere to hide. Like, if you want to make the changes that you say that you want to, like, you have to embrace this and go, full in, or you're just going to be stuck in the same place. And initially that was obviously a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm very glad that I kind of pushed through that, for sure.
Yeah. Sabor, this is where I kind of want your take too. But before I go to you, Sabor, like this is something I want to express to people. It's that, one of the examples of what Cedric was talking about, where the program curriculum is not really built the way people expect or people want, but what people need. And the thing about this is learning soft skills and learning hard skills are very different things, very different beasts. With soft skills, like if I was talking math with you or engineering with you, you and I can look at the problem on paper together. There is no blind spots. There's no blind spots there. Like everything is tangible, touchable, seeable, visible. But with the stuff, right? You need to cut through a lot of ego. You need to cut through a lot of blind spots. You need to cut through a lot of denial that you often been blind to for a long time. And so you have to understand here, your current way of learning has led you to look at the lessons that life was giving you and learn it in the wrong way, which is what got you in this crap in the first place. So one of the fundamental things we do in the beginning is we try to teach you a different way of learning soft skills, because it requires a very different way of learning. So we are just not only racking your identity on how you speak, how you conduct conversations, but even how you think, your paradigms, how you learn, just how, like Cedric said, basically teaching you how to walk again. And that can be very overwhelming for people, but it's a very necessary step that I don't see a lot of other coaches and programs doing. But because they don't do that, people are learning these very valuable skills with the wrong attitude, with the wrong approach of learning, and they're going to take in maybe 5% of what is actually that potential, what the potential could be. Does that align with your thinking there, Cedric?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the important thing to mention too is that, like, the reason why initially learning how to learn those soft skills, and then acquiring those soft skills correctly kind of over time, is like, all the stuff later on, it doesn't matter, and it's not going to be successful, and it's not going to be true. It's not going to come from the right place if you don't do those things first, right? And I mean, all that does is it limits yourself and the kind of amount of growth that you can do, but ultimately it also just limits, the benefits and the positive things that we want to create for, our partners, relationships, friends, family, wherever we want to kind of grow to be a better person for. So I think that's something that clicked really, really heavily for me too, kind of going through those beginning stages.
Yeah, I think you sent me a screenshot before this, Cedric, of the screenshot with Tracy, one of our other clients too, and she joined Marriage Helper, and she learned smart contact and their way of communication. But again, she was never able to make it work until she said basically once I got the internal shifts right and I was actually using the frameworks and saying the same things, but from a different place inside, from a place of untetheredness, from a place of non-victim. That's when everything I was saying became a lot more genuine, became a lot more believable, became a lot more effective for the relationship. What I'm saying didn't change, but the how I said it changed drastically because the why I said it changed as well.
Sure.
Um,
And I mean, if you look at all other, if you look at so many other programs and just material out there, right? Not even just programs. I mean, everything's about manipulation or finding ways to blame your partner or finding ways to justify the things that you've done and be able to make excuses and all the rest of it. I mean, I'd say, if you kind of took all that into kind of one point, I mean, that's something that's very different about the RI program as well, is it's the complete opposite. Like you're literally coming at it from the other direction. And like you said, I mean that leads to meaningful and true change, but ultimately it also means that you just get better results. So that's really, yeah, that's very, very strong.
yeah. And I always say too, like I think our program, I said this to Sabor and the coaches and the salespeople as well. It's like our program is a fight against superficial self-development. Because people have such bad connotations around programs and coaches, around relationships, especially because we do have a lot of really bad coaches. But I feel like we exist to fight, to change the current on the perspective on what coaching relationships could be like. And I hate it when we people compare us to other programs because like we're so different, right? Like we have this one program, I'm not gonna name any names, but like we are increasingly now getting people from that other program into our program because this person, he's very good at marketing. His videos are fucking flashy. He knows how to advertise his videos. His production value is high. And so people fall for that. They join his program and they realize, what the fuck? This is just 10-minute videos of me writing fucking letters. And I know a lot of people in my program who are actually poaching people from his community to my community. And once they join our community, they're like, this is fucking night and day. The community is different now. The material is very different. This is legit shit. And I want, so again, a shameless plug. Help us get there, guys. Help us get out there, right? Like support us, talk about us, like us, comment on our videos, stuff like that. We would really appreciate that because I think we're ready to scale at this point. Um, and the program too is built for A players. So, when we were creating the program, it was a really difficult decision to really say. So you picture like a bell curve here, right? Most people are going to be in the C or B region. Very few people are going to be in the F region. So most people are going to be C, B region, but then very few people again are going to be in the A region right here. If we built the program for B and C players, what a lot of people want here, yes, that system will work for them, but it will fail for the A players. It's almost like if you're an A player there, it's almost like going to like you're ready to learn at 30 clips a day, but then your class is only teaching you like 3 clips a day. I'm like, I mean, it's kind of boring for me, right? So all systems fail. We just need to decide who it fails for. We decided that we wanted to fail for people who are non-A players. So if you're an A player in the program and you want to go at 30, 50, 70 units a day, we will allow that. We want to create a program that allows you to go as high as you can. But if you want to grow at only like 5 clips a day, you're gonna hate this fucking program because you're gonna come in and you're gonna hate how complex, how long, how difficult the program is, how uncomfortable the program is because you just You were a non-AP student going into an AP class. Let's just say that. So AP is advanced placement class, right? You are a non-AP student going to an AP class. You're gonna fucking hate the AP class. But we're okay with that. We're okay with offending those wrong people. Uh, you had that doubt in the beginning, right? Where you fell for that complexity and was really overwhelmed by it. What was that feeling like if you could turn back time and kind of put yourself back in that place again? And what finally got you out of that? What realization finally got you out of that?
Yeah, I mean, it was just totally disorientating because, like, when you first join something like this, I mean, specifically for the reason that I did, you're like, okay, like, I obviously want to fix my relationship or make myself better for another relationship. But the thing is like, if that's all we focus on, if that's all there is, then, we're always leaving something on the table. And it's also not, again, it's not the right intention to come at things from, right? So as you kind of go through the program, you just realize like, it's like I mean, this applies to life. This applies to everything that we do, every moment that we spend, all our goals and dreams, everything that we want to achieve. And I guess like initially realizing that was like, like I said before, just recognizing that it's a complete overhaul of me. And and the struggle was very much in the big, like it was almost these kind of like, yeah, these little voices and victim mindsets and disguises of desire that were just screaming at me the whole time. It's like, hey, everyone tells you you're good enough, or you've been so and so successful in these areas in your life. Do you really need to do these things? And like you mentioned before, also just like, hey, it's probably the other person, and I'm just going to blame her character. It's her issues, and I don't need to do anything. And I think wrestling with those different voices and different challenges were the biggest struggle in the beginning. And then I think what really helped me break through that initially was obviously spending time with the material. But then as I kind of went through the exercises and the just the information and really kind of constructing the mental map and seeing how everything kind of linked together, and then being able to use those links then to recognize and identify how a lot of the things that we were working on, hey, it's not just about the relationship. It's not just about my partner. It's not even just about me. It's also how we look at the world in general, how we approach the world. And there were so many things in those areas that I wasn't proud of and that I realized that I wasn't doing well. And I think that was the spark that really kind of pushed me through. It's like, all right, this really makes sense and I really need this. And yeah, and then it was kind of full go from there.
Mm. There is that point for people, I think, when the program finally clicks for them and they finally have this like 100% trust to the program. And it's very difficult because in the beginning, it's almost like it's a fight, it's a race from my perspective, right? It's a race of how much I can teach you and how quickly it can teach you, because we're trying to overhaul your thinking so much, so fast, that we cannot teach you everything all at once, kind of thing. So it does, I think, for a lot of people, I think it's like after phase one and they get into the middle of phase two that people really understand the role of internal shifts, how to do it, the why behind it, the what behind it, and how that relates to everything else, and why this is so crucial, and why this is the only way. And then I think the second clicking happens when you learn the frameworks. And when you learn the frameworks, you realize, oh shit, now I understand why the internal shifts are very important. So, what were the milestones of clicking for you that made you go, oh, trust more? Then you realize this, oh, trust more, trust more. Can you even point to milestones about it?
Yeah, I'll try to kind of put it together. Like I guess in my head, like how those like the space rockets when they kind of launched, like as they kind of go up into space, there's like bits that fall off, that kind of get jettisoned and stuff. Like it almost feels like that where you have like doubt and that kind of stuff that falls off, but you still have that next kind of like layer of
Layer
like
of
the
doubt. That's a good analogy.
kind of push through, right? So, I mean, for me, the milestone was very much, first of all, learning about how messed up I was and how many of those like deep, insidious voices were actually inside me and the damage they were causing. I think that was that was the first kind of major realization where it's like, hey, I've got all these things that are kind of like working within me that are basically all just sabotaging me. And if I don't do something about them, they're gonna keep me chained down for the rest of my life. So that was the first one. And I think then the second one, once, because like all these different stages, they help make things so much clearer, and they start giving you answers, and you actually get a lot of relief out of finally understanding like this whole like mix of things that are going on that just in the past like created a huge amount of confusion. So from there, then it was understanding how like the voices and what I did off the back of them, how they cause damage and how blind I was to the damage that being caused by what I was doing, how I was acting, how I was framing, kind of seeing and interpreting everything. Um, and then the TTH being able to have that first concept, have that first conversation kind of construct in order to like express intention, but also to really start communicating with my partner like properly for the first time. And not necessarily, or not manufacturing conversation, but when things came up, being able to state that intention in a safe way, but also communicating to my partner that what I was doing was from the heart, and I was working on myself, and I really wanted to make good things happen. I think having that structure, being able to kind of communicate that was something that freed up a lot of things, created a lot of positivity in the relationship,
Yeah.
and so definitely a point where I was like, okay, this is the real deal, and it's kind of gone from there.
I kind of had a similar sort of experience too, because kind of as Jeffrey said, like in phase two, I realized like things needed to click. And for me during phase two, they didn't click. And I was struggling so much because I hadn't paid too much attention to really learning how to learn. And my failure was so strong that I was like, I need to restart this program. I need to make sure I understand how to learn. I've been struggling with learning how to learn for so long. Let me learn how to properly go through complexity because now I'm feeling the effects of this in real time. And it hurt at first, but it was a very valuable experience for me to finally click like, hey, this isn't working. I haven't learned how to learn so many times. I haven't understood things so many times. Oh, wait, this is probably one of the reasons that my own partner, she's just like, oh my gosh, so no matter what I tell you, you just like don't fucking get it. And like, this is kind of impossible. But on the flip side, once I started to learn how to learn, it made everything start to click so much more easily. It helped me become much more self-aware, much more empathetic in so many capacities. And so then it was just kind of this own building block feedback loop sort of effect, where then you're like, oh, now I'm starting to get it. Oh, now I'm starting to understand why my partner felt the way she did. Oh my gosh, I was such an idiot. How can I have seen it before? And then that really kind of helps spiral this true change that we create here in the program. And so that, as you say, when you are using, say, the TTH with your partner, it can come from the heart because you finally get it. You finally understand.
I think it's
Yeah,
the
for sure.
concept of like experiential versus conceptual understanding too. So I can give you three examples from Sabor's journey, or even yours, Cedric. Like, so I say, for example, in the beginning, right? Hey, your auto suggestions needs to be very thriving, not just surviving. It needs to really wake you up during your most stubborn moments. And I think you conceptually understood that, but I think it's not until you find yourself crumbling during very tough moments that you realize the value of those words to say surviving is not enough to clench your asshole in, but you need to make it thriving. Once you experience what surviving does and you getting crushed down by the pressure when you just are surviving, that's when you see the value and feel the value of thriving. And that's when that thriving, that thing clicks for you. Another example is when you finally so I tell you all the time, right? Without the internal shifts, you will fuck up your frameworks. No matter what, you will always fuck it up. A lot of people understand it conceptually, but they don't believe it experientially. So they go ahead and skip subconsciously, very subconsciously, very accidentally. They skip a lot of stuff in the internal shift stuff. They go to the frameworks, they execute it, and they realize like false flag on their fucking face. Then you realize, oh, that's what Geoffrey meant, right? Sabor, you said the same thing too. when I hired you as a coach, you used to be, and I always use this example, but it's a great example because like you used to be one of the haters of the program, right?
Yeah.
You used to blame the program for how we did things, how complex it was, our coaching style, etc. And I always taught you, like I always told you, like, dude, we have to do it this way. We have to give people what they need. And you didn't, and you conceptually understood that for a while. It was not until you become a coach that you realize, oh, that's why Jeff said this. That's why Jeff does this, that everything made sense. So the program, though, is actually a great sandbox that we give for people to get to the experiential understanding faster. Because we always say in our program, right? The program is like the fucking Matrix. You cannot fucking die here. This is a simulation. This is the point where you want to show your work, you want to show your frameworks, you want to show your auto suggestions, and a place where you cannot fail, right? And so this is a sandbox that you need to play the game of life, where if you fuck up, nothing really bad happens. It's just you get some tough love, you get someone telling you failed. Hey, let's get some feedback, and you move on. And that's like a major value of the program, where like you don't get that in real life. In real life, you cannot make mistakes. But the thing is, you learn most from your mistakes. So you need to make mistakes. So how do you learn if you are not in a place where you are allowed to make mistakes? It's very difficult.
For sure. And I mean, I guess like the sticking point often is like then also moving from that sandbox into real life and being like, okay, like you can't win if you don't bet. So like at some point you have to kind of overcome yourself and just be like, look, okay, this isn't going to be perfect because you've never done it in real life before. But I mean that's the thing too, is like it doesn't always have to be, as long as it's coming from the right place and you then have the learning and the understanding to then be able to go to that imperfect, situation or whatever you did, and being able to analyze it and then kind of improve it over time. Like there's a lot of confidence that comes from that. I mean, obviously, if things go really well, there's a bit of a boost there too. But to Sabor's point, like having that like learning to learn and then being able to have that confidence where like no matter what happens, even if I don't do things right, I have a process, I have a way that I can kind of analyze things so that I can continue growing and getting better and just improving, more and more from there.
Yeah.
Right. And it also kind of builds into, because here's one of the concerns that I see sometimes with YouTube or even other clients in the program is they might ask, okay, just like, tell me what to do, tell me what to say, tell me like what I can do to like save my relationship fast. But what it sounds like what you have just been saying with us is like, yeah, sure, we can teach you that, but none of that is going to hold any ground unless we really understand the internal shifts, unless we really understand the learning principles in the first place, so that when we are communicating to our partners, everything we say feels legit, everything we say feels real. And then no matter what we say, it becomes less about what we say and more about how we say things. When you have that conviction.
But to what you said, Cedric, it's almost like because I'm playing a lot more golf now, and I'm trying to be really competitive in golf, right? So I have a big tournament coming August 5th, next Monday. And forecast is today, I checked, it's gonna rain. And so the last week has been like hurricaning in fucking Houston, right? Raining every single day. And I make it a point to like go out there and play in the rain because I want to get ready. But I realize also that when I play in a tournament on Monday, it's a different feeling. This is not practice anymore. This is real life. And so there's gonna be jitters that I don't know about. There's gonna be like stuff that are new to me, that I feel new to. But when you prepare like that in a sandbox first, you just know that you can't mess up that fucking badly. And that confidence is very important. But without that sandbox, it's really hard to feel that confidence. And I think that was what you're referring to. It's like, yes, you can have a sandbox, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to take the leap to actually execute in real life where things matter. And that can be scary. But that scariness is really curbed down when you actually practice for fucking real in your sandbox.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I want to get to the first lesson here, which is, well, we've been having a lot of lessons, but like the first official one, You said we can only rise to the level that we allow our VMs and DoDs to chain us at. I'm gonna leave it vague first for you, and you tell me why this is a big lesson for you.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, like I was aware that I was struggling with things, but obviously once the program kind of outlined, the different VMs, the different DIDs, how the voices sound, what they cause us to do, and then obviously the negative effects that, that kind of get created off the back of it. Initially we're so blind to them, and because we're so blind to them, we have this huge amount of confusion. And then what this confusion does is it makes us do all these like toxic things more and more and make things worse and worse, right? So my realization as I kind of learned about the VMs and DIDs was, I mean, they never go away. They're always going to speak to us. Usually every situation that we look at, it's just like a concoction of like all of them together. But what we can do is we can grow ourselves and we can improve ourselves to higher and higher levels the more sophisticated we make our or the more sophisticated our problems become, right? So in the beginning, the VMs and DIDs and all the voices, they're very broad, they're very ugly, they're very kind of just very unrefined because they're these big massive rocks. But then over time, as we kind of like chip away at them, they become more and more insidious, like more and more small. But it also means that we can grow higher and higher as we do that. So if we kind of go through that loop, if we continue that cycle, we can, like you said before, we can grow to whatever level we want to, as long as we kind of chip away at the ceilings that are stopping us from going to the next level or beyond kind of thing. So for me, that VMs and DIDs, it's very much like the anchors that we kind of like drag around with us all the time. And then it's just about kind of shortening the chain of that anchor more and more and more as we can, as we go along.
I think the hard part to that is, again, like the VMs and DoDs, they sound like they're correct. Like they sound justified. So I can give two very specific examples here. I used to give this excuse a lot in my life. I'm just human. I used to say that a lot. When I get a challenge from life, right? And life was pushing me, I would allow myself an excuse to get out, to escape, to not push through by telling myself, I'm just human. But that is what we call the hope illusion, victim mindset, right? Um, and every single time I said that, I always robbed myself of the opportunity to learn something massive. Because there was this post the other day of someone saying along the lines of like, why do I need to put myself through this journey that is this very difficult journey when I can just fucking get a new relationship right now? And I told him this analogy of like being in a lion's cage and throwing the keys out. You know, in my life, I think a lot of my learnings, most of my learnings, the majority, 80% of my learnings can be attributed to 4 or 5 moments, big moments of my life. Those moments was when I found myself with a challenge that was pushing me over my limit. And that was to the point where I even said to myself, like, I can't deal with this. I don't know how to deal with this anymore. I don't want to deal with this anymore. But it was a decision that the consciously made to go, okay, I'm in a lion's cage. I'm about to fucking die. I can sure go out of the cage, but I'm choosing not to. I'm throwing the fucking keys out, and I'm going to force myself to summon whatever I need to summon to fight this fucking lion. And that is when I found parts of myself that I never thought existed. That is when I pushed myself to summon energy, to summon intelligence, to summon lessons, to summon whatever it is that I needed to, that I never knew existed before. But if I have just a 1% opportunity, a lifeline of the key, if the key was somewhere within reach of the cage, I don't think I would have pushed myself that far. And so again, I think we learn most through mistakes, through failures, through really difficult moments. But often when we're presented with those very difficult moments, we run. But I want us to live a life where we don't run. Because when you don't run, you grow so fucking much from that. If you just have a 1% ability to run, you won't grow anymore. That fire doesn't start anymore. The 1% is the thing that makes all the difference. Can you guys relate to that? Because like in the
Oh
program, you
yeah.
probably felt a lot of those moments too when you want to get the fuck out, but you chose to stay in. And when you stayed in, you realize, oh shit, I realized the small little VMs that sound correct, like I'm just human, for example. Or another one is like you said earlier, Cedric, like maybe we're just not meant to be, right? Like you saying that allowed you to escape, right? But once you stop trying to use it as an excuse, that's when you learn most. But you saying like, "Oh, I'm just human," or maybe we're not meant together, be together. If you don't look at it properly, it doesn't sound like a VM. It doesn't sound like a victim mindset. It sounds okay. It sounds right. But once you really look into it, you realize, oh shit, this is actually limiting my growth quite a lot. Anyway.
And we have to do something about it if we accept that. That's the whole thing, right? Like it's about like, all right, if I'm willing to embrace that, it means I actually have to do something to fix my shit. And I think that's when that's the hurdle to overcome, right? Because like, I don't know, for whatever reason, the insides of us and like the mind, we want comfy, we want easy, we want safe and the known. But like you said, kind of the growth is on the other side of that curtain. And I think really understanding that and really just kind of diving headfirst into that, that's a real key. That's really, really important.
Mm.
I had a similar experience too. So this was just like I won't get too much in depth about this, but I mentioned this in my second interview. But basically, like Cass had to go to the hospital, a lot of medical issues, and like I had to fly halfway across the country or halfway across the planet and things like that. But I encountered many situations where my victim mindsets, my deities were just like basically brewing in my head, and eventually there was a point. It's like, look, no matter how many times I go through this cycle with these victim mindsets or disguises, they're fucking doing nothing. And so it was at that moment when I was just like, I need to like this is the moment where like I need to just figure shit out fast. There is no like, hey, I have a 1% chance where I can escape the work. It's like, no, I literally need to do this. There is no other option. And so at that point, then when I'm using a lot of things that the program has taught me in terms of the reinterpretations, I became the hero for Cass, plain and simple. And so I got to discover so much about myself. And I was like, I never thought I could do this. Oh my God, this is amazing. I want to do more. I want to keep encountering these challenges. I want to keep putting myself in the lion's cage so that I can even surpass my own expectations, my own dreams of what I think is possible for me. Cedric, would you say you felt like that too?
Yeah, totally. And like you said, it's even like, once you actually start embracing exactly that, and once you start, yeah, just really surrendering yourself to the process and the program. When the first positive things start happening, you're like, holy shit, like this is like this works, but also like you said, it's like, hey, I've actually got this within me, right? I can
Yeah.
actually do this, and I can make really positive things happen. Like, I mean, I'll give a really good example. Like last Christmas, we had already started kind of spending some time together, and we went for Christmas dinner at a friend's place. And for whatever reason, I can't remember the exact situation, but like the old spirals kind of started coming back, and the old dynamics and the way of interacting and the feelings that kind of both people got off each other, and um, I was able to kind of internally kind of interpret something, and then be different for me, but then also be different for her. And she reciprocated, and she could feel that shift, and she also made the shift within herself. And I mean, we both still talk about it, like that we were both mind blown. Like again, it was something. It was a dynamic that we had thought like, hey, this is unfixable. Like both of us are just like completely screwed up, and there's nothing we can do to kind of break this cycle. And I guess that's just a small example of like, if you really dive into things, and if you really, like you said, kind of really just embrace that challenge, it's really amazing the things that can happen. And it's very profound.
Yeah. And I think we do that often in a coaching sense too, right? So more, I know since you work with me, you know, Like to give you an example, okay, my golf coach does this a lot. So one of the drills he tells us to do is, tells me to do is like, you have 14 clubs in the bag, or 13 clubs you can hit with. I want you to learn how to hit string 10 shots, perfect shots in a row. And so we start with the 58 degree, for example, 10 shots in a row, then you go to 52, then you go to 48, and so on, all the way to driver, right? And he says, you're not going fucking home until you can string 10 shots with each club. So if you hit 9 perfect shots, you hit the 10th one, fuck up, you restart. So you can tell this practice can go on fucking forever. And he's really trying to test me at that point. It's like, at that point, I feel this really strong like resistance to be like, fuck, can I just go home? It's fucking hot in Houston. It's 95, 100 degrees out, right? It's fucking hot. And so at that point, there was something summons inside me to go like, what the fuck? Like, I need to do this. There's no way out. I need to do this, throwing in the fucking keys. I either figure something out or I don't fucking go home tonight, kind of thing. And suddenly I figure something out. And Sabor, with you, I do the same thing, right? It's like, I told you, for example, not good enough. It's almost like that boxing coach is like, harder, harder, not good enough. We're not going home until you get this right, right? You hate me during those times, but in those times, I summon something within you. And with the client, same thing, right? We always say, for example, like someone gives us a process win, or hi, hey, look, guys, I did this. And I say, not good enough. Find something higher. Find something higher. You're not moving on until you get this higher. And a lot of people hate us for that. But if you hate us for that and you decide to escape, the only thing I can say to you is look at what victim mindset leads you to escape. But we're really trying to see like we're trying to create the opportunity for you to allow yourself to summon something that you never thought you had. If you escape that tough love, then you are basically saying no to that. But if you are like someone like Cedric or Sabor to go like, okay, fine, like you want, like you put me in this very difficult situation, good, fucking good. Like let me summon something. Let me use this to summon something I never thought I had. Fucking good, right? Those two very different approaches. Like when someone is in a very difficult situation like that, I think people are in a state of agitation and they're in a fork in the road. Do I escape or do I not? The people who keep escaping, those are the people that never fucking grow. The people who look at that challenge and go, let me fight through it, throw away the fucking keys. We eventually have conversations like this, interviews like this, because they get the results they are looking for, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's also translates really well into our relationships because one path is us finding reasons we can fail, victim excuses to fail. But if you think about it with our partners, when they come to us with, and life has so many different complicated problems, if they know that they can come to you and that you'll be there to like be like, all right, we're gonna figure this out together, no matter what it is. Let's understand the problems, let's work through them together, and let's find a better path for the future, no matter how challenging it is. And I'm sure people watching this, have dealt with all sorts of shit, whether it comes to like death or issues or surrounding their kids or job loss, unemployment. I know Cedric, you're saying with a coma, but if your partner can feel like, hey, no matter what, I come to, let's say for you, Cedric, no matter what I come to Cedric about, or no matter I come to Sabur about, or Geoffrey about, they are going to be the man that will help lead the way. And they can see you have that hero mindset. They're going to feel a lot of safety with you. They're going
Yeah.
to feel a lot of admiration for you.
And
And
so
I think all of us
And
will.
I think no, for sure. And I think it's also about like what you can also inspire in the other person as well. Because like you said, I mean, it's like you know, you can become a leader and you can you can really help like properly be there for someone. But then it's also amazing how, I mean, Jeff, you often say this, it's amazing how the other person, then it doesn't just have to be our partner, right? It could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be a work colleague, how much they reciprocate and how much, yeah, just how much you can inspire someone, or maybe, free some of their shackles in order for them to be able to embrace something or grow in a certain way. And it's just a really beautiful thing.
yeah. This is the second point, which is like about the paradox of change and resistance and how they're massive opportunities. And then the third point I want to branch off to is how, like you said, it doesn't take two to tango. But paradox of change, why they're massive opportunities. And I want to start here by giving you guys an example again of, um, you know, we use resistance as a way to test people's actual resolve. because we get a lot of applications. So Sabor, you took a week in sales,
Yeah.
in the prospect role when Jason took a vacation, but people will say anything to you. But sometimes like even job interviews, right? Like you can't just ask questions. You have to really put people in stressful situations to see how do you react in stressful situations. You can ask them all day long, well, how do you do in stressful situations? People always give you some amazing fucking answer, but then you put them in a test and a lot of them will fucking fail. And same thing with the programmer, right? So people will say, like, for example, hey, Jeff, like I'm totally committed. I'm totally dedicated to this, right? In my mind, we're going to go, okay, let's see. So let's push you a bit. Let's give you this homework. Let's give you this assignment. Let's push you back a bit. Let's resist you a bit and see what you do. If I give you resistance and you quit and you go like, fuck, this is annoying. Fuck them. They're so unprofessional. You can tell me all day long that you're committed, that you trust me, that you trust the program. But if you crumble upon the first resistance, your actions tell me everything. And the same thing right now, where I'm volunteering for a golf camp, and the head coach, does the same exercise where he does like, okay, I want these kids. There's like 9-year-old kids, 10-year-old kids, but this is an advanced class, and so we had the same drill where they have to hit the 5 shots, and it's hot as hell. Some kids look at that and they quit. So the kids will come and say like, I'll do anything. I'm so dedicated to golf. I want to be the best. But then we put them through the test and they quit. And some kids, they double down, right? They find something, they summon something. And it tells us a lot about the meaning, the true meaning of their words. And your partner's doing the same thing. When your partner's giving you resistance, they're trying to see like, do you actually mean this? So if for your case, right? If you're saying to your partner, like, I want to change, I'm doing this program, and your partner says like, okay, whatever, there's no fucking hope because like I'm not getting back together with you. And let's say you quit. What message is that sending? What if you double down? What message is it sending? So you got to think about resistance creates an opportunity that makes it difficult for you to fake your words. And that's when your real self will really show itself. And you cannot help but either do the wrong thing or right thing, depending on whether you've made those deep internal shifts and made it a default or not. Resonate?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I said this in my interview too about like when I joined the program 3 days later, Cass kicked me out. 3 days. So in terms of like, hey, I want to see, she's like, oh, there's no hope. You're out. Goodbye. Get out of the state, so on and so forth. And I stuck with the program despite any of that. And then months later, she's like, yeah, you had balls for doing that, Sabur. Like, I can see you're very proud of the growth you had. So, she got to see like, hey, even I took away all hope from him. He still persisted. This has to be legit. This has to be real. Cedric, would you say your experience has been like that too with your partner in terms of watching you like that?
Because you had multiple waves of resistance here,
Yeah.
right? You had the initial wave of like, we're not getting back together. Now it's the wave of, okay, we've created some safety here. So you're telling me you want to hear my shit? Okay, let me tell you my fucking shit. Let me tell you how unhappy I am then, right? So you get another wave of resistance there. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, everything that you guys are saying is resonating a lot. And it's, I guess like the other thing too is like everything that's coming from your partner or from the other person, it's like, it's totally subconscious, right? So it's like unfiltered, it's raw, it's like right to the point. It's like, it's always gonna test you to the max. And I mean, I definitely struggle with that in the beginning is like, if you cower away from it, or if you kind of like latch on to like previous patterns and avoid the work, I guess, you're always going to fail, and you're always going to be in a position where you just handbrake yourself. So after the first couple of times of that, and I made a couple of mistakes in the beginning where I did revert back to like old patterns and stuff, that then kind of, like Sabur said, it's like, right, you push through that and you see the positives out of it, not just with the partner, but also within yourself. and then it's like, oh shit, okay, right, like, you know, this is the only way to go if we want to make great things happen. So for sure, that resonates a lot.
But those are the moments that really makes the difference, though. Like, you can do 100 things right, but to be honest, like if I ask my partner and we have this podcast, right? We just recorded the first episode. Sorry it's taking so fucking long because we just don't have time this, like at this part of our life, but we're trying our best. But one of the things she said was in that podcast was like, one of the things that really made me trust Jeff's changes was when there was one moment when I made it so difficult on him, life was making it difficult on him, and he was thriving. And that's when I knew like that was real because it was impossible for Jeff to fake that at that point in time. Like it was impossible. Like, we always watch movies and we say, for example, like we watch like survival movies and we're like, if I was in a survival situation, I think I would be okay. I would be okay. I think I would thrive, right? And I always look at golfers, for example, playing in like 100-degree weather, 105-degree weather. I'm like, yeah, I think I have the chops to play, to still focus on that. Until I first played like 110 degrees, right? And I was like, after the seventh hole, I was like, what the fuck? Like I had no mental energy. Like I realized at that point, that was my true self. My true self was weak. It was only lasted 7 fucking holes, and that's when it was a wake-up call for me. I couldn't fake that anymore, right? But those moments tell people like this is who you are when life, you absolutely cannot fake your way through life anymore. And that one moment is enough to trump months and years of doubt, of suspicion for you, when you can just show one moment that you cannot fucking fake and you thrive. That is the opportunity that resistance gives you. And if every time you get resistance and you crumble upon resistance, you're basically saying fuck you to that opportunity and throwing the opportunity in a fucking bin. That is dumb, right? Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and for sure, you'll get like with the paradox of change, like I'll just say from my experience, the amount of times I got tough truths, like I had to learn how to thrive through that. So when she would say, hey, I don't love you, I don't feel emotionally safe with you, I don't trust you, and so on and so forth, she's really trying to see, like, okay, like you claim where you're trying to build safety. Let me give you all the tough truths. Let me give you all the resistances that have held bottled up inside. So in those moments, as she kept like we can say she's bombarding me with them, which for me, I'm like, oh, this is amazing, these opportunities. But she's really testing to see like, are your changes real or are they just for show? And it goes back to the whole, it's not about the 99 things you do right. It's what you do in that one moment that's impossible to fake. Do you do it in the wrong way or do you do it in the way that is a thriving way that will show her everything she needs to know about your changes being real?
Yeah.
And I think the thing that
Okay.
I'm starting to realize, yeah, sorry, just to kind of build on that, is that with every resistance, like you have the opportunity to either to lose the ability to or the chance to kind of go further, or to actually embrace that and allow you to kind of get to the next level, like not to kind of make it into a game or anything. That's really what it is. It's like as we kind of create more safety, as we also make more and more shifts within ourselves, we basically unlock like the opportunity to kind of meet more challenging resistances sometimes, but also maybe some more refined ones or more hidden ones and things like that. And so really kind of like running away from resistance, at least this is one of my big learnings, it's we're actually denying ourselves of the opportunity to have that. And that's what stunts our growth in the long term.
Yeah. Like we said in the program, right? There's no fucking neutral. It's always a fork, up or down. That's it. At any point in time, you get resistance, up or down. So, to give you guys an example, right? If let's say my partner says to me, right, like, "Hey Jeff, I hate your fucking guts. Like, I hate, I feel like you wasted my whole life. I wasted so much of my life being with you, and you ruined my life. You ruined me." That's what she said to me actually in the beginning. Like, you ruined myself. You made me lose myself. I was never this unhappy until I fucking met you. Choosing to say yes to you was the biggest fucking mistake of my fucking life. You ruined my life. You made me waste my fucking 20s, which is the prime time for me. if I decide to do nothing because I think that's the neutral thing to do, doing nothing is going to destroy that trust. It's not going to be neutral. There's no neutral. In that moment, what I do will either create trust or destroy trust. There is no neutral. Okay. So, which is why, like, it's very important for you to understand how to get the internal shifts right. Program it like a performer so you can't get it wrong, because those opportunities are going to come and it's going to be very difficult for you to fake changes. But those opportunities are going to be the forks where it goes up or down. There's no fucking neutral. Okay. Third topic is really about it doesn't take two to tango. People always say, right, like, you can't change people's behaviors. You can't change your partner. You try to change your partner, Cedric, because in the beginning, I think a lot of like you did the approach a lot of people do, which is like, let's look at my partner's behavior that I was not happy with, for example, that I didn't like, and let me just lecture, berate the shit out of her, tell her what to do instead. Like, what was your approach like, I guess?
You mean once we started like hanging out together again, or like before the
Before
breakup?
even, yeah, before. Because like I'm sure when you talk about the turbulence in your relationship or lot of conflicts, I'm sure there was a lot of things about the relationship, about your partner that you weren't enjoying, you didn't find good. And you were trying to basically change your partner's behavior, but your approach was ineffective as shit.
Yeah.
What was that
Yeah.
approach like?
That approach was being controlling, it was being needy, it was trying to manipulate, it was trying to do everything possible to make the other person feel like they were the problem, and that yeah, that I was good enough, or that there was kind of like nothing wrong with me in that sense. And just very, very toxic, like all, like basically just a combination of all of those things, right? And then you also had the other side where you might be trying to, or I definitely was trying to, get pity, be like manipulate like that way as well. So that was very much like pretty much any conflict that we had, and any rough time and turbulence that we did had, like I would basically just become like a big kind of ball of that stuff and those approaches.
Let me show you something as
Yeah,
I did, right? Let me show you something as I did on the because in the beginning, our biggest problem was always like sexual. My partner grew up in a pretty suppressed environment where she was very out of touch with her feminine side. She was very out of touch with like the sexual side. So obviously, I wasn't getting what I wanted or what I needed. Here's three things that I did that was like fucking toxic, right? So number one was I was so upset with her for the fact that like she was never in a mood, that I would take something that I know she needed, which is emotional like fulfillment. And I basically said this to her at one point. I said this, and I said this a lot in my head too. I said, fine, if you are not gonna give me what I need as a man, I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna rob you of doing the emotional, giving you the emotional fulfillment and your love languages so you can fucking feel how I feel. That's what I thought. Right. And so that was my covert controlling way of like, I think once she understands how she's making me feel, she'll fucking have sex. Like, I was such a fucking idiot thinking that. Like, that sounds so evil. But I think a lot of people do that. I know a lot of my friends do that. They play these games, right? Another thing was like, I tried to start to like lecture her on like, hey, here's 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 what I do when I'm trying to get myself in the mood for sex. Like sometimes like, and then we would watch movies, or like we would talk to people, and people, like there's one woman I remember who said this, right? It's like, hey, ladies, if you want your man to be happy, you have to give him kind of like, you have to learn how to satisfy your man. And then I remember looking at the video, I'm showing Sam, this is what a real woman should sound like. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But at that point in time, I was like, yeah, because I wanted to show her, like, come on, do it, do it. It wasn't until I learned kind of the like a more sophisticated approach of doing this, where I said, okay, instead of trying to get her to change her behavior by telling her to change it, or guilt tripping her into changing it, or getting angry at her to get her to change it, I'm going to create the right environment so that she can change it herself and bloom on her own. And so it took 3 years, but we really created safety. We really created safety in the bedroom. We really created safety for her to kind of get over and talk about and express, and for her to feel understood on a lot of her childhood traumas, for example. And once I changed those and that environment, and she can finally feel safe, now, she's always the one initiating. I can say that. But I don't want to do TMI here.
Right.
Yeah, like it's very different now, right? But people's behaviors can change, but you need to become the leader to change that environment, that culture first, so that people can bloom into that change on their own.
Sure. And I think as well, like that's where there's a lot of misconceptions around like what constitutes like a high value male. Obviously everyone kind of talks often about like, being alpha and all the traits that come with it, right? And then, for me it was always like trying to be or prove that I'm perfect, and very much controlled by over fixing, and yeah, just always like you said, never really kind of like providing like a container. There wasn't a container, it was a vice. Do you know what I mean? So like I think there's a lot of misconceptions around the approaches needed that actually, like you said, create safety and allow somebody to build confidence and allow them to bloom into whatever it is that they want to bloom in, but it bloom into. But us being able to support that and like provide like that safe space for that. So I think that's something that often gets misconstrued.
Yeah, I want to move to
Right.
the next point, Sabor, but before I do, I know you're gonna say something, so I'm gonna let you do that, and then that's a perfect transition here.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, in terms of cringe ways that, we can fall for the whole "it takes two to tango" thing. Like, I used to complain so much, like, "Oh my gosh, Cass doesn't want to spend time with me." And like, I remember one moment in like couples therapy where like I was trying to lean my shoulder onto her and she was pulling away, and my instinct was like, "Oh, could you do that? How could you like we're trying to repair the relationship together." And like, I was just so goddamn blind. Like, let me tell you how absurd it is. Like, I was so blind because this is actually what I used to do in the past. So she would actually want me to go out with her like all the time. And I'd be like, no, sorry, I don't want to I gotta go take care of this at home and do this. I don't really want to be your friends. Like you go out, do your own thing, it's fine. And so I was directly communicating the message to her that no, I don't want to spend time with you. And so then I would and then it's so absurd because then I would bitch about, oh my gosh, she doesn't want to spend time with me. And it's like, wait, I'm the one that started this loop in the first place. And so and then I'd get all lost and confused. I'm like, oh no, why does she want to spend time with me and shit? And it's like, bro, hold up. Like, what is your contribution to this shit? And if I had just looked within and questioned myself as to why Cass was behaving the way she was with me, it would have been like, I'd have been like, oh, this is fucking obvious. And then, oh, she's been telling me this thousands of times. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's funny because like to the example, right? I remember when I saw my partner doing toxic stuff, my interpretation was never like, how did I create this? Like, what environment did I create to lead her to doing this? It was always like, you can't do that, Sam. You can never say that to me, Sam. Or like, you cannot do this. You have to do this instead. So it's funny how like our mindset just changes when we're not a victim anymore. Like whenever my partner gets angry at me, for example, for example, or like I can tell she's kind of holding back and not feeling as safe as I want her to be. Um, I would always go like I would never. The last thing I would say is, "Hey Sam, relationships are about communication, so you need to tell me what you actually feel." My initial instinct is, okay, what have I been doing to kind of destroy the safety in a very subtle way, and how can I recreate that safety? So it's a very different philosophy around changing people's behaviors. Here, like one approach is we're trying to change people's behaviors by telling that behavior to change. That never works. But here we're trying to change the environment to allow that change in behavior to come very naturally, to come very organically in a way, just as a matter of time. Like the perfect transition I was looking for is really about what you said, Cedric, about there's a lot of misconceptions around what creating safety means. There was this comment that Sabor and I saw, right? It's like, because we do, for example, talk about understanding and having compassion and kind of letting your partner express her hurts with you on the surface level, this can sound like being a simp a bit. Like you're letting your partner be your punching bag in a way. But then I always say to people like, okay, hold on, like being a simp doesn't create safety though. Right? So by definition, if you're a simp, you cannot create safety. So how can we teach creating safety, but we are also teaching you how to be a simp? Those two things are not the same things. Did you have that thought initially, Cedric? Because there's a lot of people who have very different philosophies than us. Did you think, man, this is kind of simpy at some point?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, I'll give you a really particular example, right? So like when we first started hanging out again, uh you know, we did get intimate early on, and basically after that, like my expectation was like, hey, okay, like, you know, let's just get back together again, and like, you know, this is it, this is the finish line kind of thing, isn't it? And then, you know, the resistance, like you mentioned before, it's like, no, I don't want a relationship. I still want to see other people, and I don't see a future with you. And my approach to that was basically being alpha, or what is perceived as alpha, and being like, hey, okay, like I don't accept that. I don't want to be just like another number kind of thing. I would like, if we're going to spend time together, I want us to be exclusive. And made a really strong point about that. And I couldn't have chosen something to destroy safety more than that. And I thought that was like the right thing to do. I thought that was like, you know, this is the right thing to say. This is the right thing to be. You need, you know, you need to be the man in the relationship in that sense, and you need to enforce and impose your opinion and your idea. And I guess like when that all went down, the response was not good, for, you know, for good reason. And when I kind of went back and reflected on that, it was like the opposite is actually true. The opposite is actually what we do to become like like to become powerful, basically, and to become like the way that our partner needs. But initially, when I heard that the opposite was the other was actually the way to do it, like you said, I was like, that just seems really weak. And that just seems really, like you said, that you're just basically setting yourself up to kind of get walked over. I do remember having quite a bit of struggle with that concept initially. But then once you actually embrace it, like you just realize it's like, it's not about being passive. It's not about being like, you know, it's not about letting yourself get walked over, but it's very much about looking to understand, and very much looking to properly hear your partner. Because when we do that, we actually start creating safety, but we also really start understanding all the things that we've actually done in the past to kind of create the damages that we never really understood in the first place. So it's just a really, that and like, you know, related concepts is just a real mind warp, and it's such a mind-blowing thing when you first start realizing that.
Yeah. And just to give people an example of how powerful this can sound, right? So we always say it takes a really brave man to be able to look at his inner demons and inner flaws and not flinch, right? But it's a coward who cannot even look at his own flaws. So for my partner, I know that when I when she was telling me a lot of the flaws, and she was telling me, for example, like I wanted to get out of the relationship and I want to consider seeing other people, stuff like that. My first response was not like alpha, well, if you don't appreciate me, then I'll find someone else who does, you know, like whatever. It was more of like, okay, so I have been making you very unhappy. Maybe I'm not understanding something. Can you let me know? And it might take us 3 months to discover this, but like, can you let me know one thing at least, just what's driving you nuts, right? And then for a lot of people, this sounds very simpy, but like when we use the frameworks to understand that deeper, the implication we're giving our partner is that, man, this guy is not fucking afraid. This guy is not scared. This guy is fearless. This guy, is so secure in himself that he is okay with someone telling him how flawed he is because he is secure in who he himself is. If you're trying to justify yourself, explain yourself, and avoid and deny your problems when someone gives you feedback, that actually, to me and to your partner, probably looks like a very cowardly man who's not secure in himself. So that's like with steps 3 and 4, right? We're trying to deepen the conversation, but then later on, when we get to step 5, what I after 3 months or so, right? I actually said to her, okay, so I think over the last 3 months, I've really understood a lot of my flaws and a lot of the core things wrong with me. So here's what I'm gonna do, Sam. I'm gonna take what we discussed, and I'm going to find ways to work on those flaws. Whether you choose to be with me or not, that is out of the question. Like for me, that's not a consideration for me. I'm gonna work on these changes no matter what, because obviously these changes made you very unhappy. It hurt you, and I don't want to. And it's probably hurting a lot of other people that is in my life too. I want to fix this for me, kind of thing. And so she saw there that like me asking questions about my flaws and about the relationship was not coming out of a simpy place. It was coming out of a courageous, bold place of, I want to be better. And once she saw that, right, she was like, shit, this is the guy I'm leaving. The guy I'm leaving is someone who's so secure, who's so confident, who's so brave that he's able to listen to 3 months of shit, all so that he can so that he can be better. He can be a better leader, he can be a better man, whatever it is. So we often say in the program too, power is not about what you do or do or say, right? Power is in a place you come from. So yes, you can ask your partner questions about how you messed up from a weak place, from a needy place. You can do that, and the words will sound exactly the same. But you can also ask your partner about your flaws and discover your flaws from a very strong place. And we have a video on power and relationships. I'll put it somewhere up here somewhere when you're like getting this video ready. But that place will change the how in which you ask the questions. It will change your consistency of how you show that power over time, how you react to resistance over time, right? So I want to just set the stage there. For Cedric, for you, I guess the question for you is like, when did that click? Like you said, it really changed when I started to embrace the program and really understood the concept a lot more. What were you telling yourself to make it click for you to say, like, I think this is actually a more alpha or stronger way to actually go about this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, part of it was kind of just being very honest with myself that, like, I mean, how I had thought or acted up until then wasn't, well, I mean, it wasn't the right thing. It didn't work. It just created a lot of hurt on both sides, basically. So that was kind of my starting point, right? So the thing is, and then it's like, once you really start accepting that, once you start saying, all right, this is the way that it was, there has to be an alternative. There has to be another way of thinking, and there must be something that I'm doing wrong. I think the main thing then is to really, or the main thing that I really reminded myself of all the time then was to think that way, to be like, you need to look at yourself first, and you need to figure out what is wrong with you first before you have any business even trying to well, not just communicate with someone else, but also starting to, I don't know, analyze someone or speak to someone about their problems, right? So it was very much a what is wrong with me and where am I flawed kind of first kind of thinking, I guess.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that was kind of the main philosophy, I guess, that I implemented to begin with.
Cedric, you're kind of frozen here, so I'm gonna let I don't know if it's like a connection issue on your side or our side, but um to branch off to what you're saying, right? I think there was one client who he blew through the program, right? Like phase 5, not a lot of work shown. He hasn't even mastered the hedge, which is like the easiest part of the frameworks. And he's basically asking us about like, well, how do I manufacture contact? I've been blocked for 8 months. How do I like talk to her again? And I told him the example of like, hey man, like, to be honest, you sound like for example, a boxer, right? You know you don't have your fundamentals right. Your fundamentals are weak. You won't win a fight. But instead of spending your time, your 24 hours hitting the gym, getting good sleep, training yourself, and mastering the fundamentals, you're just spending your whole day calling scouts to go like, can you give me a title fight? Can you give me a title fight? What the fuck are you doing? You're doing the wrong thing. You're focusing on the wrong thing. And so I think the realization is kind of similar for you to where like, hey, when you're starting conversations, note that this is a performance. You're asking for a performance. When you're starting conversations, you better be flowing at that point. And if you're not gonna flow, then you better be in the sandbox, be in the gym, working on your shit, and stop manufacturing ways to manufacture contact. And the same thing with your partner, right? Like your partner knows you're already flawed. So you telling her that you're high value, that you're not flawed, you're not fooling anyone. Like she already knows you. She already saw what you have, like what you can give, and she's not happy. She don't like it. And so you saying like, no, I'm high value. After that, it's just idiotic, right? So we don't need to say and make promises. We just need to fucking do. We just need to fucking grow. That's it. Once you grow, your value will begin to speak for itself. And the natural ways in which you can framework, you can initiate contact, initiate campaigns will be a lot more obvious. But if you're right now asking yourself, like, how do I manufacture contact? Most likely your internal shifts are so bad that you're not able to be creative anyway with finding out how to do it. So your question should not be how to manufacture contact at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even for me, like, because you may know my story, like, I got blocked for many, many months. Like, I never once needed to ask, how do I manufacture contact, like, at all? It's just, if you know, like, if you come from a internally powerful place, it's like you're thinking of much higher level questions in the first place.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Because
Yeah,
I
the thing
guess,
that I struggle with
yeah.
as well is just like, sorry, there might be a delay on my side. You guys can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, something that I struggled with, like kind of in a similar vein, was just like not kind of, you know, the principle of like slow, what is it? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. You know, that's definitely an easy trap to fall into, especially for me, because I definitely have the tendency to kind of have this, you know, urgency illusion. And just like, yeah, just being aware of that and making sure that you really adhere to the facts, like, hey, like this is something deep. Like you have to meticulously and slowly and patiently kind of work your way through it, or else it's just going to turn into a disaster, like you said, Jeff. So
Yeah.
that was realization too.
Yeah. The next thing I want to talk about, kind of venture into, is how, you know, space and your partner wanting to see other people. It's actually a good thing, but it's only a good thing if you are using the opportunity to grow massively, right? If you're just waiting, for example, like I see a lot of people like, oh, my partner wants space, so I'm just gonna wait for her to figure her shit out. Or my partner wants to see other people, so let me just like spend time gossiping about her and hating on her and telling people how betrayed I feel. Let's just say this, right? If the concept of space or seeing other people scares you, or your partner seeing other people scares you, that is a you problem. That means that you know that is your consciousness trying to tell you, bro, you are not as high fucking value as you think, and that's why you feel so insecure. That's your consciousness telling you that. Listen to that shit. Because for people who are actually high value, for me, for example, if my partner wants space, I'm like totally fine with it, right? If my partner suddenly wants to see other people for whatever fucking reason, I'm like, that's fine. Because for me, it's like, I know you can, I know I'm not lying to myself when I say this. I know you cannot find something better. There's no fucking way you'll find something better. In fact, you wanting space and you want to see other people will just solidify your love for me. And I'm not saying that in a proud way, in like a pompous way, but I know the value that I create. I know the safety that I create. I know what we have, right? But if you don't know your role as a leader, if you cannot be confident in your role as a leader in a relationship, in your ability to steer the relationship, then yeah, space and your partner seeing other people will always scare you. But if it does scare you, that should lead you to think about a point of growth that you may be missing. So, Cedric, for you, right, your partner wanted both. She wanted space first, and then once she wanted space, you realized, I want to see other people. And then, at that point, I think before, like back then, I don't think you realized just how flawed you were until you joined the program and you realize, oh shit, there's so many things I didn't know I fucked up that I did. Speak more about that experience.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it was just like it's just this massive realization where it's like you clearly didn't create safety. You clearly aren't as good or high value or as perfect as you think you or thought you were. And you know, you have a lot of work to do. And the thing is like in the beginning, like you said, the initial reaction is like, fuck, okay, then I'm gonna go find someone else, or I'm gonna try to control it, or everything possible to kind of deny the reality of it, right? And and what that reality is trying to tell us, what the universe is trying to tell us with that. Mm. So it's really, yeah, it was just a really massive wake up call. And like we were talking about before, you have two choices. You either look at it and kind of like listen to the message and then do something about it, or you run away from it and find whatever excuse it is to avoid fixing the root problem, which is always, like you said, within ourselves. So that was a real pivotal moment for me. And that was something that, yeah, that I struggled with, but was very it taught me a lot, and it helped me grow a lot.
I kind of
But
had the same
yeah,
experience too, because when Cass first initially like said, "Hey, I want to file for divorce," and like where I live, divorce happened in 3 months, so it's fast. And she was like, "Yeah, I want some space," and I was at first I was like, "Okay, well, I'm stressing out, so maybe I'll just kind of wait things out." But deep down, I'm just like freaking terrified. I'm like, I have no clue what's gonna happen, but hopefully something will work out. And then, through the divorce, and then when she like formally blocked me, I took that space to be a very good thing. I was like, okay, this time I need to actually figure out why the hell did this happen in the first place? I need to look within. I need to figure out how to grow. And so that's just what my focus started to become. And that's what I would encourage you guys who are watching, if you're dealing with space, like, look, the space is there for a reason. Look for reasons within why that space existed, learn from it, grow from it, and you'll be very surprised at what can happen.
because right now I think Cedric, for you and Sabor for you and for me too, I think we're still experiencing resistance, but of a different form, of a different variety, of an evolved variety, right? And that will never end. But what I do know is for me, I'm in a mindset now. We talk about the three levels of success, right? We have level one, which is failure success, which is like when you get a success, but you don't know how the fuck you did it. That's the worst kind of success because you don't know how to replicate it. It's all fluke. Then stage two is what we call successful failure, which is when you get a failure, but you learn something from it, which leads to stage three, which is successful success, which is when you get success, but you know exactly how you got there. And for me, that stage three success is crucial because I don't know what challenges will throw us in the next year, in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years. I don't know what resistance she will have. I don't know what will happen to life. But what I do know is that I know how to steer this car, to steer this ship of this relationship so well to the point where I know exactly what to do to turn negative into positive. And Cedric, you kind of felt that when you told me in your journey where, hey, there was this one time where I felt myself turning something negative internally into positive, and then that I manifested that outside too, and it turned the conversation from negative to positive too. That is an amazing feeling because you really felt in fucking control. You really felt like you were having time in slow fucking motion and you're steering everything and you're manipulating, not manipulating, that's a bad word, but like you are controlling, you're leading the situation away from the negative and into and steering into positive, right? And that's the kind of confidence that I think makes us not really afraid of space or partner wanting to see other people or whatever our partner will say, because we're like, nothing is new. I know how to steer us through anything. That's fine. Do you feel that now, Cedric, or do you feel like you have ways to get there?
Yeah, like I mean, I've definitely have moments of that, and I think the nice thing about it with you know what we learn and the general kind of concepts that we try to follow is you're doing it from a place of wanting to meet the other person where they're at. Do you know? And it doesn't really matter where that is because you're not there to impose, you're not there to manipulate, you're not there to constrict. Like you're basically trying to be the container that that person can be water in, right? And then they can express themselves, they can be confident, and they know that it's a safe space to just be however they need to be and want to be. And I think I'm I'm beginning to understand that. I'm beginning to see that. And definitely, you know, it's definitely mutual because, you know, like I mentioned before, when we do these things and when we're that for our partner also becomes that for us. And ultimately that's what we want. We want that synergy and we want that mutual kind of like trust and support. And I think it's just a very it's just a very powerful way to kind of create that. Like you said, it doesn't take two to tango.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly as well. Like I remember space used to be such a massive threat to me. Like, and I was so obsessed with like I gotta spend like every waking second with Cass. Oh no, what happens if I don't? And then, the because of that mentality that I had and all my victim mindsets and DODs, what would happen is that the quality of time that we spent together would be so poor, so poor. So even now, like to this day, like when we do spend time together, and if she wants space, she wants to do her own thing, which she's more than welcome to do. The time that we have together, it's great. Like the other day, we went swimming together. We got a couples massage. I mean, you name it, and we were just like enjoying each other's company in a very, very rich way.
Mm.
Which then really, it just feels good to be able to kind of manufacture the success, so to speak, time and time again, and to know how to do it. It just leaves you with this huge sense of like peace and confidence, and you're like, yeah, I'm good. No matter what
Yeah.
happens, I can steer the ship, just as Jeffrey said.
But I also want to talk about this compatibility issue that I think a lot of people perceive in their relationship, right? Because I'm sure, Cedric, in your relationship, there's a time when you thought maybe we're just not meant to be together here. Maybe that was brought upon by the fact that you had different decisions, divergent philosophies, divergent um, directions of where you want your life to go. And it kind of reminds me of like parenting style differences, right? So for I grew up in a household with my parents where they wanted me to play golf and they wanted me to be a certain character. They wanted me to be do a certain thing. And if I wasn't a certain thing, they would get pissed at me and force me to become that thing. And I think with a lot of relationships, we often do that with our partners too, without knowing it. Like, for example, if they have different interests, if they have different goals, if they have different like career choices, whatever it is, we start to like try to control it and go, wait, that's not the vision that I have for you, kind of thing. That's not the vision that I want. That's not the relationship that I want. That's not the direction that I want. But here, what you're saying, Cedric, is my goal in this relationship is not to impose what I want on my partner. It's for me to understand what my partner actually wants and allow that to blossom. And my role here is not for this person to become my version of what I want them to be, but my role in this relationship is to become the partner, to allow my partner to blossom into whoever the fuck she wants to blossom into. And I'm here to just appreciate that blossoming. It's a very different philosophy to how a relationship should run and individual roles in a relationship. But is that kind of what you're saying too, Cedric?
Totally. And I mean, yeah, exactly. It's also then like uh learning how to like grow and evolve ourselves to then be able to appreciate that properly, right? Like appreciate that, also even kind of like understand or learn to like things that that we haven't in the past and find appreciation in those things in order for us, like you said, to be that partner, to be able like from a genuine place that can then experience things, enjoy things, support things that maybe previously we didn't think that we wanted to or that we could. And that's a really amazing part of the journey as well. So that's definitely something very, yeah, just very, very, very cool.
I want to say something kind of controversial here in the sense of like, I don't think compatibility issues exist. I think whenever two couples are incompatible, is because they, one or both, do not know how to conduct a conversation in a way that understands and connects people on a very human level. Because all of us are humans. We want the same thing. We're driven by the same basic human needs. So, for example, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we want self-esteem, we want belonging needs, we want safety needs, we want all the same basic human needs. How we go about getting those needs differ. So, for example, right, my partner, she has her need to nurture something. I have my need to nurture something. My idea of nurturing something is nurturing businesses, nurturing myself, nurturing skills, nurturing. But my idea is not nurturing kids, nurturing family, nurturing whatever. At least back then, right? My partner's idea of nurturing something and filling the self-esteem needs is to nurture kids, nurture her beauty, nurture her femininity, nurture a very different way of doing that. And we always thought we were very different. We were incompatible until we realized, like, hey, let's get the conversation away from the how and into the core here of what we actually want as human beings, the core fundamental needs. And we realize, wait, we want the same things. We just have two different ideas of how to do it. But once we understood that, the conversation becomes very much easier to talk about. Well, tell me the pros and cons of your approach, and I'll tell you the pros and cons of my approach, and let's discuss it together. And we realize, wait, our approaches are not the best way. If our goal is to get nurturing needs and self-esteem needs from the things we nurture, there are actually many better ways to do it. Here's an aligned way, the better way. And that was how clients like Spencer Davis did it, right? About their whole issue with wife wanting kids and him wanting no kids. So for our case, for example, like when I first met my partner, I was like, I'm gonna be one of those people who don't want kids. I want to be one of those adults, old people who have all the money to spend, no kids, whatever, great, right? But now I want 3 kids. I'm the one who told her I want 3 kids, right? She wants one at first. So people's ideas, behaviors, everything can change, and you are actually more compatible than you think. But you need to learn the skills to lead interaction, to lead conversations in a way where both of you can uncover what those deeper motivations are and attach some deeper motivation to your conversation so that you can align on a bigger how. If you cannot even understand that, if you cannot use the framework to do that for whatever reason, victim mindsets or whatever, you will never find just how compatible you both actually are.
Yeah, and that reminds me actually of a recent post by someone in the Facebook group that was asking about like anxious avoidance tendencies or traits. And I think what you said like really feeds nicely into that too, or explains that nicely as well. It's like because I think that like those kind of concepts that people's like first if at all, like their first foray into trying to understand some of these dynamics. But it's amazing how, these things have been around for a very, very long time and they've been studied a lot and, people reference them a lot and, use them to kind of guide their way. It's just amazing that even some of these things, they actually just stop at the surface level. And then it's like you said, like once you actually then drill into the things that you just talked about, it's amazing how you can uncover and diffuse this, like, I don't know, just like really really wrong notions about compatibility or certain styles having certain tendencies and that's just the way it is kind of thing. So it's amazing how deep it runs.
Yeah. Because like the conversation can go into attachment styles, for example, like if you're anxious avoidant, a lot of people use that to define or to label their partner to be like, oh, you are anxious avoidant, my partner's anxious avoidant. But to me, like I use it very differently because I use it to be like, okay, she's anxious avoidant. Why is she like that? Let's go deeper into the environmental contributions, my contributions to why she has become anxious avoidant. Because I realized that anxious avoidance is just a self-preservation mechanism. It's not a personality trait. It's not a character trait. It's a response. It's a reflex to how you reflexively respond to the world, basically. And you realize that once you start to change the environment in a much more positive way, my partner who was anxious avoidant is no longer anxious avoidant, right? And same thing for love languages. When my partner, for example, her love language is words of affirmation. My question is like, why? I look at our childhood, I look at my contributions to the relationship, and I realize, once I kind of changed the environment to be a bit different, I realized that she's wanting less words of affirmation because she doesn't need that anymore. She wants something else. And so what's funny is, yeah, like you said, like all these principles, they're still very surface level, but there's something deeper that will actually make you understand your partner, your relationship more as a state that it is now, but understand how you need to lead that relationship better so that you create the evolution and the growth that you're looking for in your relationship, in yourself, etc. Yeah, but I have to give it to them though. Like attachment styles and love languages, they're very simple concepts that I think people can grab onto and go like, okay, let me latch onto that because it doesn't require a lot of thought. Our way requires more thought, which is why I think a lot of people don't grab it, which is fine with me. um,
Yes.
so I want to end this by talking about kind of fake versus real reconciliation a bit, right? And I want people to understand this difference is that with fake reconciliation is fucking easy to get. So when other coaches tout their success reconciliation numbers, I call it fucking bullshit. I'm sorry to say, right? Because technically, right, your partner coming back closer when you got into your coma, whatever it is, a lot of people would call that, oh, she's coming closer, right? But that's reconciliation out of obligation, out of pity, out of pain aversion. And I think a lot of reconciliation happens like that at first. I can name a lot of clients who their partner came back not because they wanted to come back, but because they were so scared of leaving, right? But real reconciliation is when our partner is coming out of want. They have explored the other alternatives, and they are saying actively, like, of all the other alternatives, this is the one I want to go into. Not because I need to, not because I'm scared to explore. This is the one I want. That is a much more powerful reconciliation, and that's the reconciliation that we really want. And Cedric, for your case, right? You said you tried tactics at first to like guilt trip her into coming back, stuff like that. It worked at first because she came back, but you realized, oh, she didn't come back out of want, but out of need, out of fear, out of obligation, out of pity, etc. Um, Tell us more about that experience, and Sabor, you tell us about your experience because I'm sure you went through fake reconciliations too.
Yeah, I mean, like from my end, it was always like you said, it was almost like a very much like a finish line thinking, do you know? And I think what you said before about like reconciliation or whatever we want to call it, like being like it's just the beginning. Like all it means is that you have the opportunity. It doesn't mean you haven't done anything. Like all it is that you're being given the opportunity to show changes, but also be and prove that you are a better person, that you have grown and that you continue to want to, because like you said before, it's an evolution, right? It's like there is no finish line. You're always going to have another level that you can kind of go to. And the thing is like when you take your foot off the gas, like all that's going to happen is that things really kind of like fall apart again, because you're going to get lazy, you're going to get sloppy, and you're just going to like start reverting back to whatever it is like your defaults are, right? So I definitely, like my experience was very much that, where in the beginning, like I made the mistake of thinking that, somebody coming closer is kind of the goal, but then very, very quickly realized that if you have that thinking, things go wrong real quick. And also it's just not I don't know, it's just not a smart way to lead life, because we always want to improve, we always want to grow. So if we're just satisfied with where we're at or what we get, then we just keep ourselves there, kind of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was my
It's
experience.
almost like if I hired someone and I fired them because they just got lazy or whatever it is, and they are now promising like, oh, I changed and I'm different now. I'm super hardworking now. And for the first 3 months, they're like amazing, but then after 3 months, they got complacent again and slack off again. I mean, Bye. Like now I know, right? So the reconciliation part is me rehiring that person. But when I rehire that person, that is when I'm watching like a fucking hawk. And once I watch them like a fucking hawk 3 months, my trust doesn't just keep maintain after the 3 months and go like, okay, fine, I've seen all I need. I want to see it forever. I want to see it like never changing and growing all the time. And once I see a lapse because you haven't made it your lifestyle, you haven't changed it on an identity level, that's when I go like, okay, hold up, I'm distrusting you again. And that's just life. Like that's just any relationship you pick, whether it's a new one or you try to reconcile an old one. It's the same standard. People are judging you by the same standard. It's the same. You need to know how to build trust. You need to build trust out of your identity level, not on the surface level, no matter what path you choose to go, kind of thing. So, Bora, I think I cut you off there.
Oh, no worries. I mean, it was kind of the same thing for me in regards to like Cass coming really, really close. And I remember like in the group for many months, she was coming really, really close. Like, and I was like, whoa, this is like amazing. But there was always kind of that like nagging feeling that I'm like, I don't know if she actually really wants me deep down. Like, I didn't really feel that way. I'm like, it just didn't have that genuine aspect to it. But it wasn't until much more recently when, like, I moved back in, I'm like, no, this is now real. Like, what we're talking about, like, she will actively say, like, yeah, we're healing the relationship together and so on and so forth. But I just don't have that nagging feeling anymore. There's no need for it. So it's like, yeah, she actively wants to work on things. It's obvious, no doubt. So it changes a lot. It changed quite a lot for me, and you can just kind of sleep easy at night. Like I'm not like I remember back then. I was just like, gosh, this is real. This is real. This is real. And now I'm just like, it's not even a concern anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So, guys, if you guys are looking for a program that gets you real reconciliation and it's not scared to go fucking deep, right? It's like designed for A plus players. Like it's designed to get you to get changes that you never thought was possible. And I think if you ask the board, if you ask Cedric, like what they're getting now is unfathomable to them when they first joined the program. And I want to make it clear, like, and I'm gonna say this confidently, this program will never underdeliver. No matter like I know we make a lot of promises, we make a lot of like bold claims, but I'm telling you, even those bold claims, we're over delivering on that. And I stand by that claim and promise every single day of my fucking life, right? I will never uh choose to create a program that underdelivers. That's just not in my identity, not in my principle. So if you want to go into a program that will show you just so many aspects of your psyche of relationships that you didn't think existed that allows you to become a better leader, to realize that right now you are about to learn some skills that will push your relationship to areas, to levels that you never thought was possible. We have a masterclass. It's about an hour and a half long. And the masterclass will show you a 10,000-foot view of how kind of our system works. At the end of the masterclass, we'll also show you how you can apply if you want to apply for the program as well. But yeah, I hope to see more of your application soon. Cedric, was there anything in this interview that you felt like wasn't said that you wanted to say, or it's a pretty long ass one, so I'm
We covered some depth for sure. No, like I can just back up what you said basically. Like I mean, when I first joined, I had a lot of hopes, but like those were far surpassed and continue to be. And it's honestly one of the best decisions I've made in my life. So all I can say is, if you're thinking about it, do it. You'll thank yourself for it.
all right, guys. Signing out. We'll see you in the next interview.
Thanks, guys.
Oh yeah, one thing I forgot. And if you want to submit your application or join the masterclass, link is somewhere above here or and down below as well. So do that. All right. What'd you think?
I think it went pretty good. Yeah,
That was
it was
good.
nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you did a great job with making it conversational, man. I'm impressed.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I definitely wanted, I was hoping for that. And yeah, it's just nice to be able to chat to you guys for the first time. So that's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great, man.
I love how you are able to articulate things very well, especially your journey, your vulnerability, and even the way you articulated some of the parts of the program too. Like I think a lot of people we interview have a problem like articulating stuff because it's very complex things. But yeah, I just want to commend you on that. Good job on that. One thing I would say to you is like keep showing your work and keep practicing in the sandbox yourself. Um, because you're gonna get waves of resistance continuously, and each wave of resistance is gonna need you to perform at a higher level. And I don't want you to get caught with your pants down in a way where you get resistance level 3, but your process level 2, so you're not ready for it, and then you just like undid the house, like you just collapsed the house of cards that you've built, kind of thing. Don't do that,
Yeah.
right? So just keep going.
For sure, for sure. And like, I mean, even like us going through this, it's, you know, the level that you guys are able to kind of get to when you are, you know, putting yourself in other people's shoes and all the rest of it. It's just, it's super interesting because like I guess like I would have always thought like I do have like skills in those areas, and it's just nice to see that there's just like, yeah, there's so many more
Another
levels
level.
to kind of go. It's
Yeah.
cool. It's motivational. So it's awesome.
The buzzword
Yeah,
in our
exactly.
relationship now is like not understanding but understanding, right? That's what I've been saying to my wife, and my wife's been saying to you a lot. Like whenever I'm not listening, it's like, Jeff, you're not understanding me. I was like, okay, fine, I get the point. Let me try. So yeah, yeah.
Let's
But all right, guys, have a great Sunday. Thank you for your
enjoy.
time. Support, thank you for your time too. Keep going.
Of course. Yep.
Thanks, fellas. See you later.
So
Bye.
yeah.
Bye.